Hello everybody and welcome to Parks Bros. This is Drew here, and we've got another coaster review coming out of Lagoon for today, and it is for Colossus the Fire Dragon. So this is a Schwarzkopf double looper. I like to call it that, even though it's not the technical term, but I call it that because there are two vertical loops back to back, which are some of the coolest things on this coaster for sure, but I will be going fully in depth with this ride. And I've got actually a lot of great things to say. I will say that off the bat. So be prepared. Let's get some popcorn and let's jump into it. So to get to Colossus the Fire Dragon, you're going to get to the main T-junction once you walk into the park, and you're going to turn right just to where Wild Mouse is, and then you'll make another right. Go past Cliffhanger, go past Spider, don't go to Wicked, make a left when you see Wicked, and I mean, you can't miss the two vertical loops for sure. You cannot miss them at all. They stand out like a sore thumb that looks pretty. So this ride has a giant front entrance sign that's all lit up at night, and it looks gorgeous, as well as Colossus is above the first vertical loop, which is an interesting place for a sign, I would say, instead of in between the two loops or something like that. But I can see why they just put it on the first loop. It is easier to see from the midway for sure. But to get on this ride, you do have to use a locker, and I mean you do have to use a locker if you have a bag. There is no way you're not going to be able to use that, just because of how the station is set up. It's super narrow. There's not really any room anywhere to put bags whatsoever. And so you use the lockers, and I would actually suggest that they probably get maybe another 5 or 6 lockers in the future if they could. It would make some of the busier days easier to navigate, especially for that ride. But the nice thing about this ride is the line. So the queue, you actually start out next to the brake run. You walk along it for a while, then you go above it, and then you go and walk along the rest of the brake run. It's a very long brake run. It pretty much traverses 2 sides of the coaster completely, so it is the perimeter for a half of the coaster, which is kind of funny. But you do walk on either side of this piece of track as well as above it until you get into the station. Now, even on the busiest days, this ride will not have longer than a 15-minute wait. I will tell you honestly, I waited at the longest about 8 to 9 minutes. It was insane how fast they are with dispatches. This is probably in the top 3 dispatched coasters that I've ever been on. It is insane, absolutely ludicrous what they do in the station. They are safe, they are quick. It is amazing. So you walk into the station, you've got, of course, any row you can choose. You can actually not sit in the front row by yourself, which is kind of nice. I think that's a cool adjustment to people holding up the line, especially for front row. So that's a nice change of pace, I would say. But it is the traditional Schwarzkopf flat bars, so just like Montezuma's Revenge, but no seatbelts, at least that I can remember. I don't think there was seatbelts at all, but I honestly don't think you need seatbelts. And honestly, I don't really even think you really need the restraints. It just pulls positive G's and laterals the whole time. But anyways, we'll get to the ride in a second. But the dispatches are literally like 30 seconds, if that. It was insane. You sit down, click, 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 click. They're going along the train as quick as possible, and they send you out as quick as possible. They actually will send out a second train when the first train in front of it hits the final helix. So before it's even hit the brake run, they send out this train. It's pretty impressive, especially for a shorter length coaster like itself. It is just incredible. I would put their dispatch times up there with Space Mountain, as well as Wonder Woman Golden Lasso coaster when I went there for opening day. It is just impeccable and incredible, and all the good descriptive I words, I guess. I don't know. So something I noticed in the station is that there's actually anti-rollback devices on the track in the station, all the way down. It's interesting to me, but I find it a little funny as well. And there's not an actual technical chain that you can see, like a chain link. It's more of just a spot where you have a chain dog of some sort hook up and pull up the train. And it's a quicker lift hill than I was expecting. But with talking about the lift hill, let's get on to the ride experience. So I would definitely prefer this in the back. I will say that first and foremost. I got 2 rides, one in the very back and one in the very front. I say I would prefer the back, but that's just me. But you go off this chain lift and you actually get a great view of Roller Coaster, Spider, Wicked. Those are all in that vicinity, as well as Cannibal if you're really looking out. in your front seat view if you are in the front seat. Now, the first drop on this thing is ridiculous, especially in the back row. Way more intense than I was expecting on the first drop, especially lateral wise. You get thrown over to the side in the back. It is awesome. You actually get some nice, like a little bit of floater, but it's more about the laterals than anything, which I really enjoyed. And then you get thrust into this first vertical loop, which the first vertical loop is like, okay, that's cool. I like this. Sure, cool. Then you go through the second one and you're like, oh, now I'm graying out. Oh, perfect. Cool, I can't see anything. It's awesome. I think if it was just one singular loop, I would rate this lower, but with the double loop, it's just like, it just keeps building and building and building to be more intense, and I appreciate that so much. And then especially after coming out of the second loop, you hit another lateral part of this coaster, which is insane. This is probably one of the most intense lateral moments I've ever experienced on a coaster, and it's only for a split second, but the moment you come out of the second vertical loop, you get slammed, literally slammed to the right side. I elbowed Taylor really hard on our second ride in the front row. I felt really bad for it, but holy cow, honestly probably my favorite part of the ride, just because of how aggressive it is with turning into the helix, especially after the second loop and you're like half grayed out and then you end up just getting flung to the side. It's kind of unlike any other coaster experience I've had. And then you go through an upward helix, which is nice and kind of just there, which I don't mind at all. It just adds to more of the positive forces being exerted on your body. Then you actually sneak in between the two vertical loops into a second helix that goes around, and this second helix gets really close to the ground, as well as really kind of forceful near the end of it, and you get some amazing hand choppers and head choppers using the supports from the top of the helix when you're in the bottom half of the helix. But then you make another right turn and boom, you are at the brake run, and that is pretty much the ride. You go through the brake run for a little while straight, and then you take a 90-degree right turn, and then another 90-degree right turn, and you're back in the station. So it is a shorter ride overall, I would say, but it's well worth the wait because you will not be waiting more than 5 minutes on a regular day. I will tell you that right now. But this coaster is definitely in my top rankings for this park. It is a fantastic ride. Definitely some of my favorite elements on an older coaster for sure, and it actually made me love Schwarzkopf even more. Actually, that's something I realized going into this park, how much I actually really care about that company and what they used to be able to make. It just boggles me that I never really appreciated them that much until I went to Lagoon. Now it's time for the final rating, and for my final rating, I'm gonna give it an 8. And this is pretty funny. After my first ride on each Colossus and Cannibal, I preferred Colossus. And yeah, it's just, I find that really funny to myself, at least, just how that opinion changed throughout the night. But Colossus is a solid coaster. I really enjoyed it. Definitely ride it in the back if you're like me and you really like laterals and great positive G's. So this ride is definitely worth going to that side of the park at least, and it's an awesome ride. It's definitely a great supporting coaster for Cannibal, I would say, and it really gives you a different experience to anything else in the park besides possibly Jetstar 2, but Jetstar 2 is kind of in its own universe, really. It's kind of crazy, but we'll probably have a review coming for that soon as well. But I hope you enjoyed this review of Colossus the Fire Dragon. Yes, the Puff review is coming soon, I promise, since you guys keep commenting about it. But thank you guys for watching so much, and of course, as always, we'll see you on the next ride.